After suffering a humiliating 31-12 loss to Texas at home, the Michigan Wolverines will be home again in Week 3, but playing a much easier opponent than the now second-ranked Texas Longhorns. They will be playing the Arkansas State Red Wolves in a game where many people view this as a warm-up for the Wolverines, as a chance for a rest, a break, an extra week of preparation, like a half bye week before they play USC in Week 4. Arkansas State is 2-0, and they do have a mobile quarterback and a very good wide receiver. But in Week 1, they almost lost to Central Arkansas, beating them 34-31 with under a minute remaining. Central Arkansas did score, but Arkansas State was able to come back. And in Week 2, Arkansas State only beat Tulsa 28-24, once again after trailing at some point in the game. At the half, I think they were trailing by double digits, and then they came back and won. So good for Butch Jones, who is the Red Wolves coach, for manning 2 comeback wins, but now he's traveling on the road to Ann Arbor to face the best team that he has faced all year. The question surrounding this game is less if Michigan will win. They probably will. It's more so, what do they do in this game against an opponent who is very limited, who is going to be the worst team they play all season? Do they reset on offense, on defense? How does the secondary look? Does Michigan manage their roster? Like, do they start a bunch of second stringers or third stringers? Do they rotate and start everyone? Is Alex Orji the starting quarterback? Is Jack Tuttle, Davis Warren? I'd assume it's Warren, but what changes do we see? Or another possibility is the fact that this is another vanilla game, potentially because Michigan wants to prepare against USC, and they know that they could use that extra time, as USC has had extra time. They beat Utah State, shut them out in Week 2, and they have a bye this week, and you know that Riley is going to use that to prepare for Michigan. Before we continue with this video, I want you to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, to click the notification bell, share it around with other college football fans, Michigan fans, fans of any Big Ten schools, any college football fanatic that you know. Share this channel with them. And like the video to get us into the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel to help us to get to 20,000 subscribers, where I will be doing a big giveaway. And hit the notification bell so that you can get notified when we release new college football content here on College Football with Sam. This is the first time that Arkansas and Michigan play each other. First time in their schools' histories. Also, comment your thoughts down below, letting me know what you want to see differently from Michigan in Week 3. Against an opponent who Michigan, look, they should be able to do some things on offense against Arkansas State. That's really where I want to go with this, is the fact that, does Michigan restart on offense, and how does it look in this game? How do they move the football? Through the ground, through the air? Do we see improved blocking? Is there any complex blocking, or is it mostly just simple stuff, again, a vanilla offense? Do the wide receivers and quarterback have more chemistry in this game? Obviously, again, they're playing a much more limited opponent than Texas, and I do think Arkansas State is inferior, potentially far inferior compared to Fresno State. And Michigan's also coming off of a loss where, look, their offense was horrific in that game, but there were some spots where you saw that if it was just schemed better, the offensive game plan, that Michigan could have put more points on the board against Texas. There was more to be desired from both the defense and the offense against Texas. I think that it was a more so poor showing on the coaches against Texas than it was on the players in hindsight. Doesn't mean the players played extremely well. There were players like On defense, I would say in the backfield outside of Will Johnson, and in parts of the offensive line, quarterback, receiver, even tight end Colston Loveland didn't play all that well. But I think Michigan's coaching staff did not do a good job preparing for Texas, and they didn't do a good job trying to manage the game or call plays or make adjustments. Meanwhile, Texas was, well, spectacular in doing all of those things, which is why I've changed my mind about them, and I think that they are one of the best teams in the country because coaching matters. It matters a heck of a lot more, along with development, than recruiting does. And I think the case in point to that is you saw Davis Warren, as the game progressed, he did get more comfortable. And he made some throws that, while aren't, J.J. McCarthy level or Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud level, not even close, he's not Deacon Hill. And I have, recently, in really the past 24, 48 hours, I've decided to walk back some of my opinions about the fact that he is just the problem on offense. Because he's not. Michigan should have recruited better there, and recruiting does help, and it's important. But if the staff coached him better, and they called better plays, and the offensive line was coached better, same with the wide receivers, and Michigan does have some talent at wide receiver, blue chip level talent. They have a lot of blue chip talent on the offensive line. They have blue chip talent, a 4 or 5 star, depending on who you ask, in Donovan Edwards and other blue chippers in that running back room. If there was better coaching and scheming, Davis Warren could have been put in a situation, not just on Saturday, but I think for the whole season, and we'll see if this is even possible, where he could be a 2021 Cade McNamara type player. A quarterback who, with his supporting cast, is good, maybe great, and taking out his supporting cast is above average or good. And that right there would win Michigan a lot of games if their defense is also coached up. The point that I'm trying to make here is that Michigan has a lot more talent than the game on Saturday provided. And maybe some will say that I'm not being objective on that, and maybe I shouldn't even be addressing that, but I feel like I have to. Because Michigan has Colston Loveland, they have Donovan Edwards, they have Kalel Mullings, they have blue chippers all along that offensive line, like Evan Link, Giovanni El-Hadi, like Miles Hinton, Andrew Gentry. All of those players are blue chippers, and there are other players where I don't know exactly if they're blue chip like if they were 4 stars out of high school or not, but Greg Crippen has been with the program for a long time, and I think that there's a lot more to be desired than what has been showcased in the first 2 weeks. Alex Orji was the talk of spring, summer, and even parts of fall camp, and the staff couldn't even let him pass the ball against Texas. The 3rd and 2 against Texas, that is going to be a talking point that I will use in almost every Michigan preview and prediction or reaction and analysis until coaching changes, because that is the epitome of you don't know what your identity is, and therefore you do not know how to put this roster in a best position to win. You don't know how to maximize its potential. So you're not going to see that in this game because it's Arkansas State, I don't think. You're not going to see Michigan at their full ceiling on offense, and we may not see that for the rest of this year, and I wouldn't predict us to, based off of what has been showcased in the first 2 weeks. Ohio State, Penn State, even Oregon with the mess that they have currently on the offensive line, certainly USC, and I mean, heck, I'd argue Nebraska and Rutgers and Michigan State. There are probably other programs too who, whether for better or maybe even the case of like Minnesota, perhaps for worse, they are more confident in their offensive identity right now than Michigan is. And the majority of those staffs are doing a better job, if not perhaps all of them, and maybe a few more teams that I missed, like Indiana on offense. There are so many Big Ten teams, a conference not known for offense, that I feel like is managing their talent on the offensive side of the ball, and maybe even defensive side of the ball, better than Michigan. Granted, Michigan has also played so far the toughest strength of schedule of any Big Ten team in facing Texas, a elite Power 4 team, and Fresno State I still think is a good Group of 5 team, one of the better Group of 5 teams, but there is something to be desired, as I've said over and over again. I mean, Michigan's only scored, as you can see on the screen, 21 points per game on average. Average of 3 touchdowns per game. That's it. And they've only scored 0.353 points per play. And that factors in the Will Johnson pick six, which is a touchdown in one play, kind of like counts as an explosive play by the points per play calculation. They only scored 12 against Texas, and 9 of those points were in the second half after it was already 24-3 at the halftime. Davis Warren has thrown 2 touchdown passes, but also 3 interceptions. He's 37 of 58 for 322 passing yards. He's not even averaging 10 yards per completion. He's not. Now, again, I've said in this video, and there have been several people who I think have helped me steer the opinion of Davis Warren being the problem to he's not great, not good, but I don't think he's the central issue here anymore. It's fascinating because I don't know who best fits Michigan at quarterback anymore. I don't, after making that change. I mean, I think that Alex Orji certainly gives Michigan better options on the ground. I think Davis Warren, unless the staff completely doesn't know what they're doing, Davis Warren's the better passer. And outside of that, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Michigan's offense is desperate to find any kind of explosiveness, any kind of consistency, any kind of identity, successful identity. I think running the football and getting back to their roots will be the key to success. And the offensive line, this is Michigan's worst since 2021, but it can be salvaged. And I think that the Fresno State game showed that if you use Kalel Mullings and if you mix in Alex Orji, although now you have to let him pass if you're going to mix him in. Otherwise, opponents are just going to send everyone forward, and it's not going to work. And Texas showcased that. Running the football with Mullings, mixing in Edwards, mixing in Orji, even mixing in Benjamin Hall, I think the offensive line, the offense as a whole, should become more comfortable as the year goes on. Michigan, even with Warren being sacked twice and Michigan getting no explosive plays on the ground, is still averaging 4 yards per carry against a Texas front 7, front 6 that is good, great, not elite like last year's, but still respectable. And Fresno State's front 7 was experienced entering this season. Michigan has yet to record a rushing touchdown. I expect that to change this Saturday. They've ran for 228 yards, passed for 325, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, passing the ball. Michigan, at this point, they've passed the ball more than they have ran the ball. And part of that was the Texas game, but I think that Michigan, in part for this year, has actually been a little more pass happy than they should be as well. So what changes? Do they restart the offense? Does Kurt Campbell keep everything the same? I mean, I'm at the point where in 2 games in, if Kurt Campbell doesn't improve the play calling and doesn't put the offense in positions to win and just do what they need to do to sustain drives, I think it may be in Michigan's best interest to do what Ryan Day did last year, where Brian Hartline clearly was not ready to handle play calling, so Ryan Day takes over. And even though the offense isn't as good as it was in prior seasons, you still get some creativity, you get some consistency, you have an identity, and you do have a proven play caller managing everything so that in the big games, in the moments when it matters most, you get the high-octane moments. That was Kyle McCord with Marvin Harrison Jr. That was Ryan Day being gutsy and running it on the final play against Notre Dame, knowing that with just a yard, Trainum should be able to get leverage, him knowing his roster. That was against Michigan last season. Ryan Day drawing up a bunch of different route combinations using like mesh concepts with whether it was Ibuka or just using Marvin Harrison Jr. or Cade Stover downfield, knowing he could pinpoint some weaknesses in Michigan's secondary, which got banged up as the game went on, and no one can cover Marvin Harrison Jr. downfield. He's just too good. With Michigan, I think Sharon Moore may need to take over play calling and run the ball more. And they would probably run it more effectively as well, because I can tell you they are running the ball more effectively than they are passing the football. It benefits Michigan to run the ball more than pass the ball more. I think that Arkansas State actually covers this spread. I think that Michigan wins 31-10. I think it's another slow game, another vanilla game. I think it's very similar to the game against Fresno State. And a part of that is because while Arkansas State's defense is terrible, and I do think Michigan will be able to put up some yards and points on them, potentially, Michigan has not shown consistency. My trust in this staff has decreased, which is understandable. And Raynor, Arkansas State's quarterback, Jalen Raynor, is mobile. He is going to be the most athletic quarterback Michigan has faced thus far. He already has 122 rushing yards on the ground, 3.6 yards per carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's thrown 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, and he does have a good wide receiver who he can throw to. And if he's matched up against a Michigan corner or safety not named Will Johnson, Corey Rucker may actually have a chance to make some plays. He has 13 receptions for 239 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Arkansas State has not ran the ball well. I would expect Michigan to hold them to like under 50 rushing yards, maybe under 100, and that's even factoring in Raynor. I think Raynor will be the leading rusher and passer for Arkansas State. Their O-line is not good. Their running backs can't compensate for that. But I think Arkansas State may be able to find some plays in the passing game. I think that Michigan will also partially sleepwalk through this game. I think they in a certain sense almost have to look ahead to USC, because that's now almost a program defining game. Almost, because Michigan's still coming off of a successful run. They're still recruiting well. There's hope. But a loss to USC at home and then a likely loss in the future to Oregon at home, Ohio State on the road. I said in the preseason, 8-4 would be a failure. 9-3 would be maybe disappointing, but not a failure. 10-2 or above is the only thing that I think objectively could be classified as a success. That USC game needs to be a win if Michigan wants to hit that 9-3, 10-2 with good probability. So I think Arkansas State covers because of the athleticism they have at quarterback, some of the receivers that they have, the fact that I think Michigan, the minute they get up by any type of big lead, like 3 scores or more, and they've seen enough of what they want to see out of the offense, I think particularly the offensive line, I think they're going to wind it down, they're going to chew clock, and just get on out of there to prep for USC. So Michigan wins 31-10, Arkansas State covers the 23.5 point spread. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Remember to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. Thanks to Crash2488 and Brasco Rascal for being Heisman Patreon members. Thanks to Chris Lane, Kind of Little OH, Ismar, Tyler Nye, and Chilton Cush for being All-American members. And thanks to John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janisha Cockrell for being All-Conference members. Check out my Patreon page and also my merchandise store if you want to support the channel via the links in the description and down below in the pinned comment. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you all soon. Bye-bye.